Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why you sometimes hear things that aren't there? Like voices in your head, this new research dives deep into that very question, exploring a fascinating idea about how our brains predict what we're about to hear. So imagine your brain is like a super smart prediction machine. For a long time, scientists thought that hearing voices or auditory verbal hallucinations mainly happened because the part of your brain that processes sound was just acting up. But this new research suggests it is a lot more complicated, and it involves how your brain connects your actions to what you hear. Think about it. When you speak, your brain doesn't just send a signal to your mouth and tongue, it also sends a copy of that signal like a heads-up message to your auditory system. This message predicts what you are about to hear. This is a crucial part of how we know we're the ones speaking. This new paper argues that problems with this prediction system, specifically in how our motor signals influence our hearing, might be the real reason behind hearing voices. They call this the internal forward model. It is like your brain has a little blueprint of what an action should sound like. When you decide to say something, your brain sends out two kinds of signals. One is a general warning, like a heads up, something's coming. This helps your brain ignore the sounds you are making yourself so they don't seem like external noises. The other signal is more detailed. It is the actual plan for the sound. When these two signals work correctly, your brain knows that sound I am hearing is just me. But what happens when this system breaks down? This research proposes that in people who hear voices, there are specific glitches. Sometimes the warning signal is too weak, meaning your brain isn't good at telling itself, don't pay attention to this, it is you. This can make you feel like things are happening to you rather than you causing them. Other times, the detailed prediction signal is noisy or imprecise. This means instead of predicting exactly what you'll hear, it sends a jumbled, unclear signal. Imagine your brain is supposed to predict the word apple, but instead sends a fuzzy prediction that could be apple, apricot, or even able. When this noisy prediction activates your auditory system and the warning signal is also weak, your brain gets confused. It has this vivid, internal auditory experience, but it can't confidently say that was me thinking that. Because the brain is constantly trying to make sense of things, it might then wrongly attribute that internal experience to an external source, like hearing a voice. And where in the brain does this happen? The researchers point to a network of brain areas including parts of your frontal lobe, temporal lobe, and the thalamus. The thalamus, often called the brain's relay station, seems to play a key role in timing and calibrating these predictive signals. If the thalamus isn't working perfectly, these prediction signals can get out of sync or be too strong or too weak, leading to that jumbled sensory experience. Crucially, the research highlights that this isn't just about sending the wrong prediction. It is also about what happens when the brain realizes there is a mismatch between what it predicted and what it actually experienced, or in the case of hallucinations, what it should have experienced versus what it internally generated. Normally, these prediction errors help the brain learn and update its models. But if this prediction error updating is broken, the brain can't correct its mistakes. So, if the brain wrongly predicts it is hearing a voice, and it can't update that prediction because the error signal is ignored or faulty, it just keeps believing it is hearing a voice. The paper's title itself gives a big clue: Impaired Functional Double Dissociation in Motor to Sensory Transformation Mediates Aberrant Predictive Coding in Auditory Verbal Hallucinations. This means there are two distinct ways the motor system's prediction of sensory input can go wrong, and these failures lead to the faulty predictions that cause auditory hallucinations. It is like two different circuits are broken, and both contribute to the problem. The research suggests that it is not just one problem. There can be overly weak predictions, making us feel passive, or overly strong, noisy predictions that create vivid internal experiences. And then there is the failure to update those predictions when they're wrong. These different problems can happen in various combinations, explaining why hallucinations can feel and sound so different from person to person. Think about it using something called Bayesian inference. Your brain constantly balances what it expects to happen, the prior with what the senses are actually telling it, the likelihood. If your internal predictions are too strong or the error correction is faulty, your brain might heavily rely on those strong, incorrect predictions. Even when sensory evidence suggests otherwise, this leads to the persistent experience of hearing voices. The researchers used neuroimaging to look at these brain circuits. They found that in people experiencing hallucinations, the connections between these key areas, the frontal lobe for planning, the temporal lobe for hearing, and the thalamus for coordination, were not working as smoothly. This disrupted communication within the frontal temporal, Thalamic circuit is seen as the physical basis for these predictive coding errors. Specifically, the motor initiation areas like Broca's area, which are involved in speech, seem to have issues sending out those crucial warning and prediction signals. This means the auditory system doesn't get the right information to correctly interpret self-generated speech or thoughts, making it more likely to misattribute them to external voices. So, what does all this mean? It means that hearing voices isn't just a hearing problem. It is a complex issue rooted in how our brain predicts sensory input based on our own actions. The breakdown happens in the intricate dance between our motor commands and our sensory feedback, particularly in how the brain uses prediction to understand itself and the world. This research opens up exciting avenues for future studies. It suggests that treatments might need to focus not just on the auditory system, but on improving the brain's predictive capabilities and strengthening the connections within this motor sensory network. Perhaps therapies that help retrain the brain's prediction mechanisms or modulate activity in the frontal temporal thalamic circuit could be beneficial. The beauty of this framework is that it helps explain the different ways hallucinations can manifest. Whether it is the feeling of passive voices or the vivid complex narratives, these variations can be understood as different forms of predictive coding failures. It's a more nuanced view than just saying the auditory cortex is broken. Of course, like any research, this study has its limitations. The authors themselves point out that more work is needed to fully understand how these predictive coding deficits evolve over time and how they respond to treatment. They also suggest that computational modeling could help us pinpoint exactly how changes in prediction precision or inhibition strength relate to the specific experiences of hallucinations. But the takeaway is powerful. Our brains are constantly trying to predict and make sense of the world. When those prediction systems, especially those linking our actions to our senses, get a bit wonky, it can lead to some truly unsettling experiences, like hearing voices. This research is a significant step in understanding that complex brain process and hopefully paving the way for better ways to help those affected. Thanks for joining me on RUBIN'S Mind Lab. If you found this as fascinating as I did, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the human mind. See you next time.